Today we are going to talk about rhombi, which is the plural of rhombus, and kites. Okay? Rhombus and kites. Rhombi and kites. Okay? First of all, these are still quadrilaterals. Okay? They are four-sided figures. All right? And it says, recall that a rhombus is a parallelogram with all four sides that are congruent. So here, you might want to show this. A rhombus is a parallelogram. It has two pairs of parallel sides. But it does one more thing in that all sides are congruent. So a rhombus is like, a rhombus is like a square. I don't want to use that one. A square, because all the sides are the same, that has been pushed over. So where a parallelogram is like a rectangle that's been pushed over and slanted, a rhombus is like a square that is slanted. Okay? Square that is slanted. All sides are the same length. And a kite. This is like an old-timey kite. You guys have all these fancy kites now. A kite is still a quadrilateral, and it has two pairs of congruent sides. Okay? So this side and this side are the same length, and this side and this side. Oh, I wanted another color. This side and this side are the same length. No parallel lines here. All right? No parallel lines. However, the unique thing about rhombi, that's the plural form, and kite is that they share the same formula for finding the area. Okay? And that is area of a rhombus or kite at the bottom, I can get it, is equal to, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's see. Here you go. The area of a rhombus or kite is equal to 1/2 d sub 1 times d sub 2. So everything is multiplied for a rhombus or a kite. Now, d sub 1 is diagonal 1. Diagonal. D sub 1 is diagonal 1. D sub 2 is diagonal 2. Okay? And diagonals, as you look at the bottom, are when you have line segments that go from one opposite side to another. Okay? So it says here at the bottom, the area A of a rhombus or kite is 1/2 the product. What does product imply again? What operation? Multiplication, yes, of the lengths of the diagonals. So sometimes they will give you the length as the total down here. Okay, they will show it here and then they'll give you the number down here. So this is a diagonal and they'll give you its length right here. Sometimes, especially in a kite, you might have to add up the parts. This might be 3. This part might be 6. So this would be a total of 3 plus 6, which is 9. So sometimes they'll give you parts. Sometimes they will give you the whole length of the diagonal. Does that make sense? A little bit? This might be 3. This might be 3. And so this would be 6. Now, I'm just making up those numbers, but I want to show you, again, sometimes they'll give you the entire length, and sometimes they will give you parts, where 3 plus 6 makes up the whole diagonal for a length of 9. Any questions about that? All right, let's turn to the next page. So, area of a rhombus. So this is like a square that is slanted. So for a rhombus, we would have all these sides are congruent. Okay? Notice it says in step 1, find the length of each diagonal. Well, we're working on that. Because the diagonals of a rhombus bisect each other. If something is bisected, it is cut into 2 equal parts. So if this up here is 6 millimeters, that means this bottom section here is also going to be 6 millimeters. So the length of the entire diagonal is going to be 6 plus 6 for a total of 12 millimeters. Okay? So here they are giving us the parts. Diagonals bisect when it comes to a rhombus. This is 6, this is 6, so the entire length of this one diagonal is 12. And going the other way, notice they have these 2 marks. This length is the same length as this. If this is 7, this also is going to be 7. So that total diagonal length for diagonal 2 is 14 millimeters. And there's no difference between calling one diagonal 1 and diagonal 2. Okay? You just pick one, and that's the first diagonal, and then it's the second. All right, so now let's find the area of this rhombus. They already gave us the formula, so we're not going to rewrite it. We are trying to find the area, so we leave A as A and say 1/2, I'm going to say is 0.5. Diagonal 1, we said had a total of 12. So we multiplied times 12. Diagonal 2 had a length of 14. Multiply by 14. So you put all of this in your calculator, 0.5. And if you do parentheses, you can say times 12 times 14. And what do we get for an answer? That is correct. 84. And how am I going to label this? Millimeters squared. Yes, millimeters and then squared. Area is always in squared. Any questions about that particular problem? All right. So take a look at the one at the bottom. It says find the area of the rhombus. So in a rhombus, we know all of these sides are congruent. See if you can do this one on your own. Find the area of the rhombus. So write the formula first. So 1, we need the formula. Second, we need to substitute the values in. And then third, give me the answer. A equals what? Make sure you put it in the correct units and squared. So I'll just give you about, 2 or 3 minutes. See if you can do that. 2 or 3 minutes. Just working on this one problem. should always remind you to make it bigger. Small. Are you all done? All right. Let's see how you did. So, formula. The formula, rhombus or a kite. Area, I'll make it bigger up here. Let's move this out of the way. So, area equals 1/2 d sub 1 times d sub 2. You've got to have that, okay? On the skills check on Thursday, each of these types of problems are going to be worth 3 points. 1 for the formula, 1 for substituting the correct values in, which in this case would be 0.5 times diagonal 1. Maybe you put 10 as the first diagonal. Maybe you put 18. As long as you have both of them, it doesn't matter what the order is. Okay? Now, if you're looking at this, you might be saying, oh, 10, but they didn't bisect it. So this entire diagonal is 10. This length is 18. If I put in that diagonal, it would go that entire distance. So 1/2 of 10 times 18, your answer should be, trying to do this in my head, 90. So that would be 90 meters squared. So you get 1 point for the formula, 1 point for substituting in, and 1 point for a complete answer with the unit and with the squared. Did anybody have all of those? Did anybody have 2 of the 3? Okay. Any question about this particular problem? Okay. Let's turn the page. And we are going to skip for now page 5. I want you to go to example 7. Now, as you look at example 7 here, what figure does, and maybe you've already seen, this is a kite. I was going to ask what figure, but maybe if you started reading. This is a kite. Of the 4 figures that we are talking about, it's the only one that doesn't have any parallel sides. Okay? So we're talking about a kite. We need to use the formula for the area of a kite. So area of a kite is 1/2 times diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. That gets you 1 point. Come on, Trey. Hey, come on, Trey. Come on. So, what do they tell us here? It says one diagonal measures 58.88. So that's the long diagonal right here. So we're going to make that diagonal 1. If the kite is 978.88 square centimeters, well, that is the area. If they're talking about square centimeters, so we have to substitute that number in place of A for area. So 978.88, that's the whole amount, is equal to 1/2, which I'm going to take as 0.5, times diagonal 1. Diagonal 1 is 58.88 times diagonal 2. Diagonal 2 is what we don't know. So we can put in x. or at least that's what they have here. Now you could leave it as diagonal 2, okay? So before I start to solve this, I am now trying to solve for x. I want to know what is the length of that diagonal. I have to figure out what is half of 58.88. So on your calculators, kind of over at the side or something, on your calculators, find what is 0.5 times 58.88. What do you get for an answer? Hello? You guys have the calculators in hand. What is 0.5 times 58.88? Okay, thank you. 29.44. So you multiply those together so you know what to divide by, because right now everything's being multiplied. So to get x by itself, you need to divide by 29.44. And since this is an equation, whatever you do on one side of the equal sign, you need to also divide by that same amount on the other side. So divide 978.88 by 29.44. These amounts are going to cancel out. And so x is equal to, works out to be 33.243. 33.243. It says to round to the nearest hundredths place. The hundreds has 2 zeros. That means 2 decimal places. Here's 1, here's 2. So look to the right. Is it 5 or more? No. So my final answer would be 33.24, and we've got to label it. This is all about labeling because you're talking about lengths. And that is, what is this in? Centimeters. That is the length of a diagonal, so it's not squared. And that is the x amount. I saw some puzzled looks there. Are there questions? You always start with the formula and then you substitute the values they give you in the problem. So for this problem, they gave us the area of the kite. So make sure you substitute and place that. How did I know that was the area? Because it said square centimeters. Anytime you have centimeters squared or square inches, that is your area. So substitute that for A. 0.5 times the diagonal 1. You have to multiply that so you know what to divide by. 29.44 on both sides. X equals 33.243. Round to the nearest hundredths. 100 has 2 zeros. That's 2 decimal places. Any questions about this problem? Okay. That is all the notes that I have for today. So we have time to work on your homework. Now, just because the skills check, I moved that to Thursday, I'm going to leave the homework due on Friday, although I think many of you will get it done first. So, homework number 1, still going to be due on Friday, but the skills check is moved up. Okay? So